Hello, Mary Baldwin students. This is Dr. Tausman coming to you live from my house here in Roanoke. Hopefully you have the agenda before you. Chapters, 3 and 4 may be useful as well as far as learning some of the key information for this unit. I'm going to start with kind of a problem-based method of teaching here. If you want to read on the agenda, problem number 1, teaching stat at Mary Baldwin and JMU. In this example, to psych students, turns out that each class only has 3 people in it. I ask all students, so that's a total of 6, if they like statistics. 5-point scale, with 5 being the most positive and a 1 being a negative rating, if they like the class. If you look on the example there, it says data set 1 for Mary Baldwin College. I've got 3 people, and the numbers are 2, 3, and 4. Data set 2 for JMU, I've got 3 people there, and the numbers are 1, 3, and 5. You notice that it says in parentheses population there. Do you know why it says population? Well, because if there are only a total of 3 people taking these classes, and you sample 3 people, then you've actually sampled everybody in the group. So you've got a very small population there. Population means you actually ask everybody who's part of the group. So these are both considered population. And one question I could ask you is, based on the data, does it look like we have people more happy or a better attitude about statistics in the Mary Baldwin class or the JMU class? As you take a look at this, it's a very simple data set. What would you say about that? Does it look like one group has got a better attitude than the other? Well, hopefully, you would look through this and you would say probably not. What most people use as the measure of central tendency, that is, as it's recorded on page 73, central tendency, one number that really represents the group, people usually use the mean. And the mean gets a symbol of sigma. Hopefully it says that somewhere in this. Or mu, as the case may be on page 75. It says mu is the symbol. That mu is 3 for Mary Baldwin College, and mu is also 3 for JMU. So if you got the means as a measure of central tendency, the arithmetic average, you would probably say, well, both groups are kind of equivalent. So you can get the means. Another measure of central tendency that you can use, that your book talks about, although it's not used as much, is the median, which is kind of the middle score. You take the top score and the bottom score and you kind of arrange them in sequence, and then you get the median, which is the middle score, which is also 3. Another measure of central tendency that your book talks about that you can also get is the mode. That's the most frequent score, and here we don't really have, it's unimodal because there's no score that occurs more often than another one. So in this case, you would say that attitude is quite comparable for the groups here. For each population, because the means, mu, is 3 in each group. So we tend to use mean, median, and mode. Mean is used most often as the score that represents the measure of central tendency. I do have a second example, though, for you. It's the follow-up learning example. Let's say I give you a data set 3 and 4 there, where the numbers are 1, 2, 3, and 4 for data set 3, and for data set 4 the numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1,000. In this situation, would it be best to use the mean, median, or mode to represent central tendency? Now, if you look at that, the usual default answer is the mean, but think about that for just a minute or so. In data set 3, what is the mean? It's about 2.5, right? It's the middle score, so it's about a 2.5. You would take the average of both things. But look at data set number 4. What would be the mean in that group? You'd actually have to add up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1,000. You divide that by 5 and you get something like 251 or something. So we would not really want to use that if you think about it, because the mean in that case, if it's around 250, does 250 really represent that data set? No, there's no numbers right around 250 to represent that particular data set, so the mean in this case would not really be good to use. Instead, you'd probably want to use the median, and in this case the median you'd probably go with, for data set 4, the median would be 3, and the median for data set 3 would be the 2.5 once again. So if there is an outlier, like in data set 4, it's usually better to use the median than it is the mean. And if you want a real world example of that, because if you think I'm just talking nonsense here, which could very well be the case, think about housing prices. When people report about housing prices, most of the time when you hear about median housing prices, the reason they always say it's median housing prices is because there are outliers. If, for example, a famous baseball or football player purchased a house in an area, if you go back in old school, a guy like Michael Jordan, if he were to purchase a house, or Kevin Durant, or LeBron James, they probably buy a really, really expensive house, and it would kind of be an outlier. So you wouldn't want to report what the mean housing price is, you'd want to report the median. So the three measures of central tendency then are the mean, the median, and the mode. Most often we use the mean to represent central tendency, and we tend to use the median when there's an outlier, like in the follow-up learning example. So hopefully all this makes good sense to you, and you've learned the key points. Thanks. Bye-bye.